Why don't we begin by you telling us a bit about the Columbus City Schools? Paint a picture in a nutshell of what the district's all about.
Yes, so we are the largest school district in the state of Ohio. We have approximately about 50,000 students, representing 30,000 families, with 9,000 employees. We have students that speak over 110 languages.
Whoa.
Yep. And we have about our students are about a 52% minorities. So, and we have a wonderful student body, wonderful staff, and we're in one of the best cities in the state of Ohio. So
what's the budget? What's the annual operating budget?
We have about a 1.3, almost $1.4 billion budget.
Oh, so that makes you one of the largest of the not only public nonprofit, but
one of the largest employers in the city.
In the city,
yes.
One of the largest budgets.
In one of the largest budgets, yes. Yes.
Well, thank you. Anything you'd like to add, Jen?
Yeah, you know, we also have a lot of history in our district. Actually, this year we are celebrating our 175th school year. And, you know, from the beginning of, you know, our creation with just being in a few schools to that huge expansion where we were almost at 100,000 students in the 70s, and then kind of coming back down after experiencing some of those social issues. I mean, this district has gone through, you know, quite a bit. And so we have a really rich history, a really diverse history, something that we're proud of. And, you know, just as Talisa was saying, you know, we not only have, you know, a large budget, but we actually have a large budget in terms of our government, other governmental partners here in Columbus. So, you know, we're a pretty big player here in terms of, you know, economics and, you know, the way that we impact our community.
Now, how long have you been on the school board, Jen?
Oh, just a few years, actually. So I came on school board just a few months before Dr. Dixon actually started. I was not part of her hiring. I was not yet on the board then, but we kind of started together in a way. And so yeah, so I've just been here, I think going on 3 years now, and I've been board president too.
Okay.
Yes.
2 years.
Yeah.
What, if I may ask, what got you involved in K-12 education? What led you to run for the school board?
So I am a product of this school district. My mom is a teacher. I truly believe in public education. I know that I feel that I can bring the skills and ability to continue to improve and to push our district forward. I believe in our students. I believe in our staff. I believe that in order to have the vibrant Columbus that we speak about, our schools have to be that center and that model, as Dr. Dixon or Talisa says, of urban education, that you know, that model of urban education. And I just believe that, you know, we can do it. And so I stepped in, I stepped up. I have a daughter. I have kids in here in the district as well. So just, you know, kind of all bought in from all aspects of it. And just really believing that I know that our schools can be that thing that we all will continue to be proud of, and really be able to push us forward, which is what we're going to talk about. And I'm so excited to talk about the work that we're doing right now.
So our topic today, our main topic, is that very important partnership between the school board president and the superintendent, the chief executive officer of the district. And let's begin this discussion by telling me what you see as the key characteristics of a really solid partnership. How would you know it's solid between the board president and the superintendent?
I'll start with that one. So I really think that it's really critical to understand the roles and responsibilities of each component. And so I am a lawyer, so I really like rules and regulations and kind of what are those rules. And I try very hard not to overstep those. And then also work to build a relationship of trust and confidence together, because we are co-leaders, but we have different responsibilities and different roles in how we lead, but we lead the organization together. And I think just having that kind of understanding and then having that kind of open and honest relationship with one another, and being able to talk about the hard stuff, be able to push each other. And I think we've done that well in really trying to think broader about the visioning. And then, me being able to help manage my colleagues and the other board members so that we can allow the board to do board work, allow the superintendent and her administration to do that work, and then together we can collectively move the organization forward. So it's more of a philosophy in terms of understanding who does what and the why behind the what is really, really important. Talisa, what do you think?
Yeah, I think to add to that, to emphasize that the trust part is absolute. It's a non-negotiable, right? Because if you don't trust who you're partnering with, you can't get to really defining the next steps for the organization, right? So you need to make sure that it's a person that is that you can trust, and even trust in a sense that you can be vulnerable, right? So especially during this COVID time, you want a board president that you can say, I don't know the answers right now, but how can you and I talk to get our community through these next steps, right? And if you don't have anyone that you can trust, even when you're not at your best, then it's not going to be good when you're at your best. So I think it's so important that you select someone that you can trust, but also that believes in your leadership, right? And that doesn't mean they agree with every decision that you make, but they can support that when they understand the why. And even when they don't, then they can question, but question in a respectful manner and say, you know what, Talisa, I don't like this decision. Can we think about something else? And not that I don't like this decision and we're not doing it, right? So let's kind of talk through the why. And that's why I respect so much about Jennifer. And I think it helps that she's a graduate. She knows this community, she knows this district, and she has a vested interest because her mom is a teacher. So she's hearing from different stakeholders too. And I think that's good. So I think trust, being vulnerable, having a thought partner is critical to this work, and someone who wants the best thing. They're in this role because they want what's best for the students in the community. There's no personal gain. There's no personal aspirations. I'm going to sit on the board and check it off as I, go on to my next move. But I think that is just that's so critical.
What a great answer. Now, when you first started working together, you didn't know each other very well at that point, I assume. So what steps did you take? What concrete things did you do to make sure this new and pretty complex working relationship got off on the right foot?
Yeah. So for me, as Jen stated, I was selected in October of 2018, but I did not officially start until March of 2019. Because I was still a superintendent in another district. And for 3 months or 2 months, I was working in both districts, right? So the board that hired me in October of 2018, I had 2 new board members in January when I started in March of 2019. And then the following year, a new board president. So for me, it was an adjustment. I had to pivot quickly to say, okay, the board president who hired me, who knew me, believed in my strengths, et cetera, that I could do this job, is now exiting the organization. So now I have to make sure that his successor also had that same belief and support. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure we did was just, you have to have meetings. You have to continue to communicate with your board president. And those are, I think we start off at bi-weekly meetings, and then we went to weekly meetings. We would do text messages, we would do phone calls, because you have to get to know the person, and not just a work person, but the personal person too, So we started with that. We were drafting, we came up with a schedule. That board president to me is the speaker for the board. And I say to the board members, you elected the president, and as a superintendent, you need one person to represent the board. And that relationship that you have is critical. And then we also included the vice president in our meetings. So we meet weekly now, the three of us, myself with the president and the vice president, to just go over, problem solve, to think through some things that other board members may have reached out to them, or some other constituents. So setting up, being very intentional about the meeting schedule is very important.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's, we have this scheduled meeting, which is good because we have like an agenda, but like Talisa said, communication is really open at any point. Literally there's been times where we've been on the phone at 11:30 at night because we had to. And, that's really, really something that, we're open to. One of the first things I did, because I knew my leadership style was different than my predecessor's style, was, I don't know if you remember, Talisa, like I sent like you and the main people that we would work with, like this kind of like list and like things that you guys were like, whoa. But really, so I in my day job I work in a big organization. I do a lot of workforce development and organizational culture shifting change. And so for me, it was just really important to level set. And I'm a really collaborative leader. And like Talisa, she mentioned in the previous question, I don't hold blame or grudges. I believe organizations have to make mistakes in order to grow, and it's how you handle the mistake that's really the test. So not coming down hard on people, like just figuring out what happened and let's fix it and not do it again. And just using this growth mindset. And so I think Talisa has that too, obviously being in education. And so in a way, our leadership styles and problem solving styles work well together. And so it was just really important for me to at the beginning kind of say that. I also had to do that with my board members as well. Like Talisa said, I was technically only on the board. I was appointed that January, so less than a year, and I became the president of the board, which in retrospect was kind of a big deal. I didn't think about it that way. But I was a newbie and trusted enough by my colleagues to do that. And I think that in the end, both with Talisa being new and with me being new and COVID, oddly, we were really able to do a really good organizational shift into how we start to solve problems and then work towards, our future. And that's what we're doing right now.
And I would like to add a little bit. So Jen is also a strategic thinker. She does strategic planning, right? So, and that's what K-12 organizations do. And sometimes we don't do well, right? So with her expertise of how it was done in her work entity, right, really added value to our next steps. And then with me being new, with her expertise, it really, I think, allowed us to move forward faster. And then especially after we did this dynamic workshop at Harvard. That was just, it was just awesome to really think about our theory of action, how we're going to move forward. And so I think her colleagues saw it, they just saw, okay, where's the magic, right? We're going to get someone who's going to lead us, where is the magic in that? Here's a person who's going to keep us focused. Make sure we have a strategic plan in mind and we're thinking strategically. And it was, hands down, it was Jennifer. And so, I mean, this is year 2, and we, probably foresee some more years, because people recognize how hard this job is, especially when you're very intentional about changing the outcomes for kids. You have to be a strategic thinker and have to have kids in mind at all times. And not that others don't, but Jennifer does it, and does it very well.
Now, you both are very prominent public figures. Indeed, both of you are the face of the Columbus City Schools. So we have an obvious shared agenda. Tell our viewers how you've divvied up the external relations function. How have you shared it? Give us a sense of how you work together.
So I think that, again, it goes back to what is the role or purpose? Each of us speak for the organization, but we do so from different goals or perspectives. We have the same goal, but different roles, I guess. And so, also Columbus, our city, is also a little bit different in the way that it likes to engage with us. So in truth, Dr. Dixon is a lot bigger deal than I am. It's true. And so actually her face is probably more well-known than mine. Maybe I'm starting to get there, but the city certainly holds its business community, which she is a part of as a CEO of a large organization. She is part of that community. We hold those people up at a really high level. So she engages a lot in those things, and I'll let her talk about the things that she does. I do a lot of news interviews. I do a lot of the bigger scale cheerleading, like, vision stuff. If it's something that is very programmatic or very, Dr. Dixon or her staff do that. We will go out, not just me, but board members. I also like to share the love. And board members will go out and do community kind of meetings and engage that way. That's just kind of how it's worked. Now, COVID definitely, I would say, obviously has changed the way we interact. And so I think we did one interview together. It was really fun. Remember, we did that Facebook show we did together. That was really fun. But, Dr. Dixon, she can tell you more about things. She does more of the big, more business community type stuff. Would you say that that's kind of accurate?
Yes, but I also want to say too, we've changed the narrative, as Jen said early. When I first started, there was like no one wanted to be a part of the school district. It's like, you guys stand over here, everyone else is going to stand here. And I know what Jen has done and her team is leverage their partnerships with their constituent, their peers. So we're having more conversations with their elected officials and saying, we want to be at the table. We should be talking more about what's best for our students in the city of Columbus. We're not a separate island unto ourselves. So I think that pushing in to those conversations is helping lever me in other conversations. So it would be glad to say that I was a superintendent and was welcome into all of these, doors were all open for me, but for years they were not open for Columbus City Schools. And I believe because of Jen and the board that more doors are being opened because people are now trusting us and they're trusting our intentions, and they believe that we are, for whatever reason they didn't prior, but they believe that we do have the students' best interests in mind, and that we are being more collaborative and more transparent with the broader community. And so the exercises that we do to demonstrate that have just been invaluable. And it was one that we just recently done with Battelle for Kids, and this portrait of a graduate. When we're talking about a strategic plan, how do you think about the hopes and dreams and aspirations for students in your city, and you not do that in isolation? So we were very intentional that we are going to join with the broader community. It is a community conversation. It is a community decision to decide what is best for our students. And then it's our responsibilities as CEOs and business leaders and owners to make sure that those experiences come alive for students. And then it's the district's responsibility to tell the story, to report out how well we're doing. So we're doing a better job of that because of the board relationships, and the board is pushing into those conversations and holding their elected officials and others accountable for doing what is best for us, for our students outside of the school district.
You know what? Thank you for highlighting that, because you talk about me being really strategic. For me, that is just a core value of that, is that collaborative relationship. And I forget to highlight it. It is so important. And for whatever reason, our school district went through a time of bad rap, bad reputation, bad relationships. And part of what Dr. Talisa and I have to do is start to repair that. And so, we are a big deal. Like, we started off our budget, our impact to the city, and we have to demand that we're at those tables because we should be. And so building those relationships with our sister government, because the thing is really all that's going on in society now, all of the push to make changes to the way that we treat one another and interact, and what is education going to look like to the future. And that takes all of us, just like Talisa was saying. It's not something we can fix by ourselves. It's not something our city sister partners can fix. And so it is really, really important that we all start to work together in our cities and in our state and in our country.
Now, my next question relates to communication, but I think that we've already covered a good deal of that, but I'll give you an opportunity to add anything if you'd like, about your guidelines for communicating, your rules for communicating with each other. We touched on that earlier.
Yeah, I think it's just open and honest and being transparent. And even if we know that each other is coming from the best place. And so even if it's a hard discussion, it is about understanding that you have to have it to move forward. And really, there are no rules other than that. I think, we have access, anytime. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I would say that from a superintendent's perspective, when I think about the rules of communications, I think for me, it's best that I communicate up through the board president, right? So if I am frustrated about something, I would just pick up the phone and say, Jen, or send her a text message, because I just kind of strategically think that a little communication problem can move out to all 7 members if me and the board do not handle that immediately, right? So if it's how do we want to be communicated to as a whole, some issues is text message, some that I'll call Jennifer. Jennifer will send the information out. I do a weekly report to the board. It's funny, sometimes board members don't read the report, but I know that Jennifer is going to read the report, but I make sure I send that if I'm speaking, I want to make sure that they know exactly what I'm doing at all times, but because they don't micromanage, which I love, but they want to know what the superintendent is doing. But I want to make sure we have open communications. And when I am frustrated, I call on Jennifer, and just a little example, I was frustrated about something with one of our board colleagues, and she and I talked, the board member and I, for 2 hours, and we kind of came to some agreements. And one of the agreements, I said, you know what, I will stop jumping to conclusions, right? Or making judgments about the intentionality of the member, and just, from the heart of heart, I think is coming from a space of good. But the frustration it's like, well, why do we keep, coming to this point, right? And so, but it comes to just stepping back and say, there's so much good work that we have to do together, that it's not worth not being on the same page about something so small. So we have to communicate and talk openly about that issue, which Jennifer always says, Talisa, call. Talisa, reach out, you know, and as the leader, I'm like, I'm so angry. And what resulted from that engagement was, oh, okay, yes, I did jump to a conclusion. Yeah, there was some misunderstandings, but that's something that Jennifer always supports, that I do that. And when I did that with that board member, that really cleared a lot of misconceptions on both parts. So I think, you know, we keep saying open communication, we can overstate that. You know, just communicate, because we're in COVID, we're not together as we normally are, right? So we are seeing each other behind these these monitors, or mask, or, you know, or shields. So just continue to have that open dialogue is just so important.
I think though, for me and you though, so the way that we've decided, like you just outlined about how we're going to handle my friends, that's why I call them my friends,
yes.
My colleagues. But for me and you, we know that it's open. And in that example that you gave, you're right, because that example was literally in the span of 20 minutes, you both separately communicated with me your frustration. And I said, you all need to talk. Right. But because we have the relationship we do, and I understand what's going on there, I can say, you all need to talk and you guys can handle that. But like you identified, there's other things where it is more appropriate for me to address my colleagues as a colleague, not, you know, you, who we technically are your bosses. And so we've made those but that's only because, again, what we started off by saying, we know each other, not just as business leaders, but as people, and you know, appreciate who we are and kind of understand each other's styles.
It does seem that you really enjoy working together.
Yes, agree.
I mean, you radiate that.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming there have been normal moments of tension, perhaps around style differences. Have you had to work through any
You know what?
issues like that?
I really can't. So yeah. My style is not to, there have been times where early on before COVID, there were some decisions and things that we had to backtrack. And I do think in one meeting, and it was, I think I said it publicly, that I was frustrated with something, a decision you had made, and that was probably the extent of any type of, I mean, I typically really try to talk to her about it. And like she said at the beginning, like, we will really just have the conversation. And if it is a perspective difference, we try to learn, we try to balance. And in the end, honestly, it comes down to, you know, sometimes we come to something in the middle. Sometimes she's right. And I'm like, you're right. I don't know enough about that. Sometimes it's balancing what the other what the other board members are doing. And, you know, sometimes it's, you know, in certain situations, it's just a learning opportunity for her, for us, for the organization. And it's about those things where, you know what, okay, we did not make the right decision, and we're going to learn from that. And so that's my kind of philosophy. I mean, Talisa, you're on the other side of that, so maybe you have a different perspective, but and part of that is because of the work I do. We work a lot on individual communication styles and understanding each other. And I try really hard to just know that not everyone communicates like I do. And I try to understand where they're coming from and their perspective and work through any issues that way.
Yeah, I think it's when you have the changing of the guard, right? You have to be mindful of what one board president thinks is important, and the involvement they want is very different from the next, right? So if you don't understand that in a timely fashion, then as a superintendent, you're making decisions with that past board president's leadership style in mind, right? And so with Jen, as I stated earlier, is a strategic thinker. She's really trying to understand the why behind the decision, right? And then when she doesn't, you can clearly see it, and she gets frustrated, and she's like, wow, you know, I'm really trying to, because she has to explain it to her constituents, right? And if I'm not explaining the why, I've just made the decision. You know, I think we learned from that. That is not the way we have to move forward. We have to take the time to really, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why we went to more of a weekly meeting, right? To really talk through those things, which was very different from the previous board president, right? So, yeah, and we've just kind of learned too, if we think there's going to be a problem with something, let's talk about it. Let's pull the item. We don't have to move forward on that item. You know, nothing is an emergency. But again, COVID just brought something just totally different. When you think about a superintendent, now all of your bosses are at home with more time to help you run the district. You know, so we kind of, you know, so it's not you and Jennifer, it's you and everybody else. And so I think we've kind of gotten away from that now, that is back to just Jennifer and I just brainstorming it and moving forward.
And, you know, it's not just that you radiate pleasure at working together. It's obvious that you invest a lot in relationship building. I think you both agree you make a real effort to make this work. You don't take it for granted.
Oh, yeah. I think you have to, you know, because you want, especially when the mission, right? When you think, are you in this for the reason you're in these positions? And when those things align, then it's not like a lot of effort. I mean, you know, there's effort placed in it, but you're not like, oh my gosh, I got to call the board president today. You know, oh, like, you know, it's a joy because you know that it doesn't have to be every Monday at 5 o'clock that you meet. You can just pick up the phone or you can send a text, and good, bad, or indifferent, right? And it doesn't mean that that person is not pushing back on you, because there have been some decisions that Jennifer says, no. We recently had one of our board consultants and wanted us to pause some engagements, right? And I said, hey, Jennifer, you know, da, da, da. She said, nope, we're not doing that. I don't agree with him. And I was like, whoa. Now, I didn't expect that.
But
right?
it's because he's right in terms of alignment, but I built it to align. So because I'm strategic and because we don't have time.
Right.
And by the time, so what, and we'll talk, hopefully be able to talk about this a little bit, this work around the portrait of a graduate and our strategic plan and really our new vision. And part of that is in that board governance and really restructuring how we govern to align to that. Yes. And so we redid our committees. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. And right now the committees are in the process of building. They're not really meeting in terms of public meeting, but they're building. And so in order for us to be ready to implement that strategic plan at the beginning of next school year, I got to build them. I can't wait. So yeah, I disagree with AJ. I told her, no, we have to keep going.
But it worked out, you know. And so they have a board liaison, and we invested in a board liaison, right? And I'd never had a board liaison, work with one prior. And the board members was like, we need a board liaison. I was like, well, what is a board liaison? And so that person, she has been a godsend because she's able to kind of be the intermediary. And so I went to her and I said, hey, this stuff is back on deck. So let's get these meetings set. And she immediately went to work on that. But
now, this is so fascinating. We could take the rest of the afternoon, but I'm sure you have other very important things and more important things to do. So why don't we conclude by your telling us a bit about one or two of the initiatives or projects that you worked very closely together in spearheading. Just give us a couple of examples of your collaboration. And who's first?
Pointing at me, I think I'm sorry. So I'm sorry. I mean, we've mentioned it throughout this interview, and I think something we're both proud of, and really that's setting the new strategic vision for the district. And the thing is, it's so wonderful about it. It's not it's not a Jen and Talisa vision. It is a Columbus community vision. And so we have worked really hard as administration, as the board, coming together, figuring out how to do that. We have 2 sets of consultants, so bringing them in together to really be able to put voice to what the community wants. And I think that the process, while it wasn't perfect or smooth, and that's okay, definitely lend to a product that I think that we're both proud of. And we had, like I said, different roles and responsibilities in that, depending, on either setting the broad goals and guardrails as the board does to kind of govern, and then the more strategic implementation of those, what Talisa and her administration will do. But you have to do it together. It's got to be one solid vision that then is, comes from the community. And so I'm really proud of that. I'm actually honestly really proud of the way we handled COVID. I mean, most of that was Talisa and her team, obviously the day-to-day, but as the board president, especially, I got called in a lot to be the cheerleader or be the backup, no, we are doing this. I mean, I think in one board meeting, we were getting a lot of pressure and I said, we are coming back, or whatever we were doing. I don't remember what we were doing, but being the nope, this is what that decision was and I'm backing her. And so, that kind of thing was necessary at those. And I'm really kind of proud of that relationship as well, maintaining our roles, but, making sure that, we have a shared vision and we're in step on a lot of these decisions through COVID.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, I think, that whole strategic planning piece was so important because we didn't have a strategic plan when I started. There was one that the board was hoping that I adopted, but I didn't believe in it because it was based on old data. So the board allowed me to start this visioning process with a consultant with this portrait of a graduate, and the board was all in. And they listened and they were involved. And then we selected another consultant to work on the board goals and guardrails, and so as Jennifer said, how do we make sure that 2 consultants, 2 plans, come together as one? And we did it. We were able to step back and say, we cannot do all things, but there are some things that we could focus on and do really well and that we all agree that are important. And we're going to allow the portrait work, our hopes and dreams and aspirations for our students lead the way. Our students leading the way is our North Star. And so what are those few things that we know that we have to be very intentional about and focused on in every single meeting? And as Jennifer stated, what are those, those board, board, what is the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of it. Our board groups. Committees. Thank you. What are our board committees that really ensure that we are doing what we said we're going to do? And so, and that's why I said to Jen, she's so strategic, right? So we're thinking, no, we're going to stop that work, but she's already 10 steps ahead and knowing that those committees are behind the scenes, putting the structure together. So I think that's the power of our relationships. We're really thinking outside the box, because I'm totally visionary, right? And she kind of helps put it on paper. She came to one meeting and said, okay, this is, with this diagram, and this is the things we're going to focus on. It was so magical in a sense, because we were able, she can kind of see and hear what I'm thinking, I can hear what she's thinking, and we put those things together. And I think that makes the relationship work. It's personal because we want the best for our students in the community, and we are in the leadership positions, so we know it has to be good stuff. It has to be great stuff, right? Our reputations are on the line, and we don't want room for a lot of error, but we know that we're going to learn through the process. So these initiatives that we are moving forward, takes the heart and soul of us, because we really believe in this work, because we're taking the time to do it very well and go back and check and inspect and make sure we're doing it right. And if we're not, we go back again. And me and my team like, oh my gosh, what? And another example is equity. And we're saying you cannot make a mistake on that, right? We've been talking about it as a strategy. It's a position that I stated when I started in 2019. We're going to have a leader of equity. So, and Jen and the team said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. We're going to be very intentional. We're going to go slow to go fast. And so those are the things that you have to do well, and you have to be committed to, and you have to come together as one and make sure you're still talking about it. And I think that has been so valuable to the organization, where she sits and her lens on this work is so important on the work moving forward with excellence.
Well, dear colleagues, you've done a great job of explaining what is obviously a very effective working relationship. Want to thank you for your time.
Thanks, Doug.
Let's see. Oh, we're at the weekend, so I want to wish you a safe and relaxing and satisfying weekend.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've earned it. So thank you so much for your time, and you take care.
All right.
Thanks so much, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.